I was 25 when my brother passed away. He was 17, and so he's my baby brother. He was sweet, a sweet guy. About 10 years later, I was about, 34, 35, whenever I lost mom. And then, like 4 months later, my dad got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and he passed away 8 months later. So it was just like boom, 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 boom.
Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, grief and soul purpose coach, and fellow griever, Tara Accardo. Jessica, welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I am so excited to have you here today. Your story of loss and resilience and all of the things was really touching to me, and I empathize with it a lot in my own way for a variety of reasons that I will not say right now because I don't want to ruin your story. I want to let you share it. So first and foremost, welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, my pleasure. I love to usually start these conversations with you just telling listeners a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you, and then we will get into your journey of grief and loss.
Sure. So it's hard to, I feel like my story is like so big, so it's always hard to kind of like pare it down.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll start with my story of grief. I guess it really started with my brother, who I lost whenever he was 17. And so that was just really hard to navigate that and watch my parents go through the loss of a child.
Yeah.
And so I was really close with my mom during that time, just walking her through that. And so just seeing her walk through that, I saw a totally different perspective, just because I was grieving myself, but I felt like I was just trying to hold all my grief in because I wanted to be there for her. Yeah. And so anyway, kind of fast forward, and about 10 years after that, my mom got sick with cancer. And so she, I guess it was probably about 9 months after she got diagnosed, she passed away. And so, I was caregiving for her, and between me and my dad, we were kind of her main caregivers. And I wrapped myself up in managing schedules, and that was how I escaped. I thought about if I could just control something, and that was what I could control. Her caregiver schedule, her doctor schedules. And, after I kind of stepped back away from that and realized that, she didn't really need me to do all that. She really wanted me to be there with her. I'll never forget the time because I was working full time as well. And she just asked me, she said, will you grab some lunch and just come to, sit with me while I have chemo? And, I was just thinking, of course I was thinking, I don't have time, I'm busy, I've got this and that and the other. And, you think about a million things that you could be doing or should be doing. And it was in that moment whenever I walked in and I saw how excited she was to see me, and just, it was just in that moment that I realized that, I needed to step back and quit trying to wrap myself up in caregiving and just actually be more caring. Yeah.
And really quick, sorry to interrupt you. I'm just curious,
okay.
just in terms of like a timeline. How old were you when your brother passed away? And then kind of what was the timeline between that happening and then your mother's cancer journey? And like, how old were you during all of it?
So I was 25 when my brother passed away. He was 17. And so he's my baby brother. And he was sweet, a sweet guy. And then, so about 10 years later, I was about, 34, 35, whenever I lost mom. And then, so we lost mom. And then like 4 months later, my dad got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and he passed away 8 months later. So it was just like boom, 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 boom. Although, Justin, my brother, he was a 10-year period, but it was just, that time period was just really long, but short at the same time.
Yeah.
So
time like ceases to exist.
It does.
It
does. It does.
Like, oh my God, what's my timeline again?
Yeah. So that's my story of grief. But my other, what I like to do, I kind of mirror my mom, what my mom did. My brother died by suicide. And so my mom, she dove into trying to be a warrior and trying to help others. And so many times she would be up at night just in these groups, these support groups. And she would just be like, if I can just help one mom know that she's not alone, that somebody else has been there, somebody else has gone through this. So she really dove into that for her grief. And
Mm.
so I watched her do that, and I watched it really help her heal. And I've always been kind of a helper as well. And so I just really dove into that, and I thought, through everything that I do, I just want to make sure that I help people and that I let them know that they aren't alone in their grief or whatever they're walking through, and that they can get through it on the other side. So that's kind of how resilient, that's kind of why my word is resilient. But anyway, so that's what I do. I have a wonderful husband. We've been married for almost 26 years, and we have a 23-year-old daughter that just got engaged. And so,
Oh,
yeah, so we're planning a wedding. And, but
okay.
yeah, yeah. So I love journaling. I am trying to write a book and have a podcast. And so that's all the things that I do
Busy
yeah, yeah, stay
in the best
busy.
way.
That's
Can I just
right.
say too, my God, bless your mom, like to channel your grief of losing a child,
Mm,
which I'm very new to the mom game, very new.
mm,
I'm only
mm-hmm.
a little over a year into it, but
Aw.
I mean, my God, it's just that thought, if anything happens, knocking on wood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like I understand the pain of losing parents. I've been there too. And it's weird. We have like kind of similar-ish stories in terms of like my mom was also, I think it was like a little less than 9 months from diagnosis to passing, but
Mm-hmm.
like it was that and just trying to show up for her however I could while working and doing all the
Sure.
things. And then my dad's, again, slightly different timeline, but like felt very back to back like that. Although he had cancer for 5 or 6 years
Mm-hmm.
when she was diagnosed and was going through all that. By the time he died, it was like about 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I also just was like, I don't know that he like even wants to live without her, honestly. They were married for so long, like he
Mm-hmm.
might be able to empathize with that too. So couple kind of just sort of follow-up questions. Also, may I ask, like, what types of cancer did your parents have? Sorry if you
Mom,
mentioned that, I missed it.
no, mom had lung cancer, and then dad had
Okay.
colon cancer.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
colon, I hear,
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah.
brutal one. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And especially caught in later stages, it sounded like it
Yes.
was,
Yes.
yeah.
And their cancer journey was so different because mom
Yeah.
was fight, fight, fight,
Yep.
whatever treatment you can give me, I'm gonna take it. She just really wanted to beat it, and she had the aggressive kind of lung cancer. So it was pretty inevitable. I mean, they caught hers at stage 1, but
Oh,
it just was so aggressive, and the treatments that they were using was so aggressive, and it really just wore her body down. So, my dad saw mom go through that and all the things that she had to do and go through, and he was just not one to go to a doctor. I mean, he was not that type.
sounds
So
like my mom.
yeah, yes. And so he
Yeah.
he he loved his job. He loved what he did, and he was a backhoe operator, and he for one of our local utilities, and he loved it. He loved who he worked with,
Oh,
and he was just like, he asked the oncologist. He said, if I think they gave him 6 months to live, and he said, so you think I could have 6 good months? Because if I can, I think I'd rather have that than three. I think they told him that maybe 3 or 4 years with treatment.
right.
He said I'd rather have that and be able to work and be with,
Right.
and just so anyway, yeah. Yeah, so
Oh my
it was
God.
hard. It was hard for a lot of the family members, his brothers and sisters, that he was the first sibling that they had lost, and it
Yeah,
was
mine
really
too.
hard. It was really hard for them, it was just for him to just not take treatment.
Yeah.
And of course it was hard for me too, because I mean I wanted him there as long as possible, but I also knew my dad well enough to know that he would not be happy going through the treatments and doing all those things, and so his happiness was more important. So
Yeah. Oh my God. How beautiful. I mean, I can't begin fathom making that choice
I know.
and you're actively choosing that. Like it truly is one of the bravest things I witness people doing, but so valid, so
Yeah.
valid.
Hmm.
I respect the people who make the decision to go through treatment, and I
Hmm.
deeply respect just as much the people that are like, no,
Yeah.
I want to do this on my terms, kind of like I just don't want to live in extra pain and going through all of that. It's
Hmm.
like, yeah, it can prolong your life, but it's almost like at what cost in some
Sure.
situations.
Yeah.
So I mean, more power to the man.
I
That
know.
that's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
I want to kind of go back a little bit to the time of your brother's passing,
Mm-hmm.
because those are incredibly different, both deeply painful
Mm-hmm.
losses, and the way in which they happened
Sure.
for you. As I know I'm an only child, so I don't have a sibling, and so I, can only begin to imagine that type of grief, and also, and this has kind of hit me home a little bit recently too, just death by suicide also. And I mean, as the sister, as the one sibling, what did that journey look like for you, and how did you process that? I know that it sounds like you really threw yourself in to be a supporter and
Mm-hmm.
everything, but like, did you did, like, how do I even want to ask it? Did you grieve that? Like, did you feel like you were able to really grieve that, or maybe not right away, or like, kind of, how did that realization come to you of like, I'm suppressing this, if
Yes.
that makes sense?
I think it was many years later that I
Yeah.
realized how much I was truly suppressing.
So
But
common.
yes, yes. So I also have an additional brother. I'm the oldest,
Okay.
and then I have a middle brother, and then Justin
Got it.
was the baby. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was so important for me to support my mom and to be there for her. And you were talking about being a new mom, and just being a year in. And my daughter, I have an only child too, and my daughter, she was 2 whenever he passed away.
Oh,
So it really changed the way that I parented too,
sure.
I
Sure.
think. People, because of course, I think my daughter turned out amazing, but I do see where I fear parented a lot. Her
Mhm.
happiness was always at the forefront of everything. I wanted,
Yeah.
didn't, if something wasn't going right for her, I wanted to fix it. I wanted to make it better. I wanted to make it go away, or,
Yeah.
whatever. And so in some ways, I know that you have to go through hard things to build true resilience. And so in some ways, I feel like I kind of stole that from her in a
Yeah.
way, because I was always trying to swoop in and make sure that she was never unhappy,
There's
because
that padding
yes,
there,
yes,
kind
yes.
of, yeah,
And
proverbial padding,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah. Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I didn't know Justin wasn't happy. I didn't know that there
Right.
was anything going on with him. So it was like I always had to
That's
have a
scary.
pulse on it. So I feel like it really changed the way that I parented.
Great point.
But no, I do think I grieved. I think really I kind of dove into why. I just wanted to know why. So
Mhm.
I searched to the ends of the internet trying to find something that would just give me a little something that would be like,
Yeah.
that's why, that's what happened, that's exactly what happened. And of
Right.
course that was back in dial-up days, so I I would spend hours and hours and hours on the internet, on the slow dial-up internet. But yeah, so I feel like I just had to try to find a reason why. And so I suppressed a lot. I think that, there was a lot of anger, and it wasn't really directed at anyone, but it was just, I think that sometimes whenever you lose someone, it's like you look at people's families who are whole,
Mhm.
and it just it just kind of makes you sad. It just really heightens that sadness, because it's like, I wish my family was whole, you know.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
about, of course, I went through that with Justin, and then later on with my parents, because, I mean, my daughter was the apple of their eye.
Love
She
that.
was everything to them, and they were very, very close. And, I would see neighbors or families getting together on Sundays for dinners, and that's what we used to do,
Yeah.
and playing with their grandkids. And it just
Just
sometimes,
robbed.
yeah, sometimes it just would just feel so bad. And I remember Sundays were always the hardest for me. I don't know what it was. I guess maybe because we did get together and have
Yeah.
meals and just spent time together on Sundays. But
Mhm.
it wasn't until many, many years later, honestly, probably 5 years ago, is whenever I started to really feel the effects of suppressing my emotions. And
Mhm.
so I've kind of been on this journey of making myself process and feel these emotions.
Yeah.
And I picked up journaling again. I had always been journaling was always been a thing for me. Whenever I was a teenager, that's what I always turned to. And so I picked that back up, and it really, really helped me through a lot. And so a lot of people in my small town know my story. And so whenever they would go through hard things, they would message me and they would be like, how did you get through all that?
Yeah.
Um, and I would just say, have you ever tried journaling? Because I mean, seriously, just writing
Yep.
your feeling, writing things out on paper, just, it really does something. It pulls things out of you that
It
you don't
does.
even
Yeah.
know, are there.
Yep.
And they would always just kind of like, whoa, I don't know anything about that. Like that's, it's like they would freak out about it
Yeah.
and really intimidated.
Too
So,
close to home too. Like I
yeah,
almost don't want it to happen to that. You never know
exactly.
what's going to come out. It's like that fear of the unknown kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So I decided I had to create something that would help people get started. So I created some journaling prompt decks, and those have gone over really well. And I love sharing that with everyone. But I love the feedback that I get because typically it's always like, okay, I start with the quote that and I reflect on the quote and I answer the prompt, and then the prompt is something up here and I go way down here and I'm like, where did this come from? It's like the
Right.
bottom of the page. It's like that had nothing to do with what I was starting off writing about or the question I was
Yeah.
answering. But that's just the beauty of putting the pen to paper. It's like it just pulls it right out of you.
Sure does.
And so it's my daughter, she uses the decks every single day. She's as part of her morning routine. And so
Oh,
I was like, that's the best thing that the fact that she has learned how to journal and she
what a
knows it.
full
And
circle
so,
moment. Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
So anyway, so
Wow. And
journaling
that's like
is,
your energy and your love into that, and your daughter gets to use. Oh, I love that so much.
yes.
Journaling has
Yeah.
been major for me too. I created my own journal for that reason. It's just,
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
it really is so cathartic and can be very healing and humbling. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just a good check-in, right? Because we can have so
Yeah.
much going on up here
Yes.
in our
Yeah.
minds. And, yeah, we have to be checking in with ourselves and just a little gut check every day. And I also find it really interesting too to see one of the things I love about journaling too, and could be free writing or prompted or whatever, but like it's a really interesting perspective on like where we've been and where we are now and where we're going. And
Yep.
I yeah, it's you know, I guess I won't say journaling in and of itself has been life-changing for me, but it's added
Yeah.
to the life-changing element to it because I've had some of
Yes.
those little aha moments or little
Mm-hmm.
perspective shifts or, just little again, you just never know, like you said, what could
Yeah.
come up. So
You don't.
yeah, it's a beautiful practice. I wanna talk about I'm curious if you've experienced this with, specifically with your mom, but also your dad, I guess you could say some anticipatory grief around that and just the experiencing any grief as their health was declining. And I asked because I definitely went through that, but I didn't know it was anticipatory grief at the time. It was, it was very complicated. I hadn't, I had lost people before that. I was much
Mm-hmm.
younger. It was different circumstances, not
Sure.
people that were close, but not as close as a parent. So I was just curious, like, do you feel like you were experiencing that anticipatory grief? Do you feel like it was maybe something else? Do you feel like you were just like, nope, I was on like kind of autopilot mode through that? Like, just talk to me a little bit about those times in your life when, they were losing their health but weren't gone.
Yeah. That's a really great question. And I'd say yes and no. Because,
Mhm.
like you had mentioned, autopilot. I
Yeah.
was the queen of autopilot. But, I think about like whenever they're to the final stages and you look
Yeah.
at them and you're so sad for them and you know that they're not living the life that they want to live and you're worrying that they're in pain and it is so hard to let them go, but at the same time it's almost as hard to just watch them sit,
Yeah.
and just worry about them. And so I don't know. Honestly, with my mom, it was really challenging whenever she was sick because it was like the doctors were saying without saying that you need to get your affairs in order, basically. And I'd never seen anything like it. It was like she just did not hear that. Like
Wow.
she couldn't hear that and process that.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of like stuck because we were like, she, we don't want to be like, you're not going to beat this. We don't,
Be
we don't,
pushing that on
yeah,
her, but, like, you wanna,
yes,
like, give her hope and support and not be like, "Hey,
exactly,
we need a plan for your death. Can you just,"
exactly.
like, awful,
And,
but
and I'm sitting there thinking of all the things that she might want to do, or all the people that she might
yeah.
want to talk to or see,
Ugh,
and so we were kind of in a really difficult spot because it was
yeah.
almost like we couldn't really talk in those terms with her because
Yeah.
in her mind
Like, kinda didn't wanna
she was going to
acknowledge it
beat it.
maybe or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, she was going to beat it.
Ugh,
So we kind of danced around that a lot whenever she was sick. And so I feel like there was just so much going on with her and her health and just all the things that I don't know that I really had time to even think about her being gone.
yeah.
And but I do know that like after she was gone, it was because mom and I were very close as well. We were best friends and talked every day, multiple times a day.
Mhm.
And so that was the hardest part, I think, was just those
Yeah.
moments that you think about picking up the phone and you can't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And my mom, she spent a lot of time in the hospital there at the end, and she did brain radiation, and her voice was not the same. and
Oh,
and it was like, so whenever I would call her, and she was very, very stubborn. She did not want people staying with her at the hospital, and
oh,
it's because she didn't want to put anyone out.
ugh,
And she just refused. She's like, no, everybody go home. I'm fine. I have nurses here,
oh
and
my
you
god.
guys come up tomorrow. Of course, so my dad would usually go up during the day, and then I would stop in on my way to work, and then I'd run out on my lunch break and stop on the way home and that kind of thing. But I just remember so many times that I would call her, and I would be at work, and I would just tell him I have to go. It's almost like I couldn't gauge by her voice if
Yeah.
she was okay or not.
Okay, right.
And it was like I have to go lay my eyes on her, to
Oof.
make sure that she's okay. But with dad, I think it was, kind of the same deal. It was like with my dad, it was the time was more peaceful. It was more wholesome. We had a lot of
Mhm.
really great conversations and just spent a lot of really good quality time together. And so it was just night and day between
It's
their
just different.
experiences. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I knew that my dad was he hated being not being able to get out and do things, and he was very active and outdoors, and so there at the end it was really hard. So I knew it was going to be difficult, but again, I think I suppressed more and more and more to the point that I think it started to come out in ways like in my health and just I don't know.
Yeah.
I always say that I think the reason that I suppressed my emotions so much was because after Justin died, it was like I could not control my tears. I couldn't control my
Mm.
emotions. It was
Mhm.
like just it was constant tears, and it was I'd be at work or I'd be in church or just whatever, and it was like I couldn't control it. Like they would just come, and
Mhm.
I hated that. I hated that I couldn't control it.
Yeah.
And so I have control problems sometimes. So yeah, so I was like, okay, how can I fix this? All right,
Yeah.
we just turn it off. We turn it off,
Oof.
and we just pretend like they aren't there. And it eventually catches up with you though.
It does,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, this is actually perfect segue because I wanted to ask you about this and just, your perspective on resilience and everything, and we'll get to that point, but I can you just elaborate well, actually, you kinda did a just a great job of that then, but, like, in terms of how you started realizing that, okay, this suppression thing isn't working. It's really starting to come out in some iffy ways
Mhm.
here. It's coming out sideways. So kind of two questions. One, how long was that after I guess your dad died? Because it's like let's
Mhm.
say that was kind of like that point
Yeah.
from that point onward. How long was that period? And then in what ways did you feel like it was kind of starting to affect you physically?
Let's see. I'm thinking it was about probably about 8 years, 7 8
Okay.
years after.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it was definitely a slow progression, I think. But it started to affect my marriage because
Mhm.
I was closed off, and it was almost like my husband was just begging me, like, just let me in. Just let me in.
Oh,
Like, you can talk to me about this. We can talk about this, and
mm,
it's not, but so I think that him constantly reminding me, like, hey, you're not feeling. And I was being reactive in a lot of ways, and I'm not that way. So it was definitely just like messing with the way I related to people around me.
right.
And so it was just really important for me to have that perception to everybody, like, I'm great. I'm doing fine.
Mm,
Look at me. I'm a rock. Nobody can
yeah.
break me. And so the more that I put on that persona, the more that
Yeah.
it was stuffed down.
Just kind of like
And
embodied it sort
yes,
of,
yeah,
but like
and
not in a
yeah,
good way almost.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then it was, but I was shutting everybody out, so I
Right.
was like shutting my husband out. I was probably shutting my daughter out too,
Mhm.
but everybody around me probably had no idea that I was suppressing as much as I was until, but
Right.
the people closest to me. And so I'll just never forget there was one moment, and I think that I had maybe just a conversation or an argument with my husband, and then I think I had a little spat with my daughter or something.
Mhm.
And it was just like in that moment, something just clicked in me with me. And I was in the bathroom. I just, I just remember just putting my hands in my face, or, just my face in my
Mhm.
hands. And I was just like, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah.
And I felt so defeated, but I literally picked up the phone that morning and I called and got an appointment for therapy because I was
Oh,
just like, I have to work through this. Like, it's not
unpack
fair.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's not fair to the people around me. It's not fair to
Yeah.
me. So I remember writing a blog post about that, and I think I called it waving the white flag. And
Yeah.
because I was just like, okay, here we go. I'm buckled in. I'm going for the ride.
And
Yeah, yeah. But also over the years, I'd slowly gained weight. And I think that that also contributed because I was finding other ways to
mhm.
kind of, because I wasn't feeling my emotions and it was like I was stuffing them. So it was just, I
Right.
was treating myself with food. And I don't know, I just think about just my emotional well-being. You can just tell that you're not
Yeah.
your true self. And I just was seeing that more and more. So that's,
Oh my God.
yeah.
What a process. And 8 years later too.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for sharing that honesty and like and even it affecting your relationships and your
Yeah.
marriage. Like I'm really thankful you mentioned that. I talk about it here on the podcast too. Like my husband and I now are great, but like at one
Yeah.
point right after my mom died and right before my dad died, we broke up. And there's
Okay.
a lot of reasons for that, lack of communication.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think I was even suppressing. I didn't even know what to suppress because I was
Mm-hmm.
so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so not used to our relationship and that dynamic and everything changing, right? Like we
Yeah.
just kind of didn't know how to figure it out. And then we
Yeah.
did, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate when people come on here and acknowledge that because like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so common for friendships, partnerships, marriages, whatever, they suffer. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, we have to somehow wake up every day and choose how we cope
Yeah.
or how we don't
Yes.
or how we communicate. And it's like I was talking about this with someone earlier today actually. It's like grief brings a lot to our life,
Mm-hmm.
negative and positive, I guess you could say. But I guess a I hate to say positive, but like a positive quote unquote thing for
Mm-hmm.
me is resilience, which I want to get into in a second. But
Yeah.
I think just for me, it was like a big self awareness. And I'm not perfect. It's not like an all day, everyday thing. I have my moments. I'm human, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's something about grief, and it's not even that I'm, like, in my griefy moments that I feel this way, it's just, like, an awareness that, like, "Oh, I'm not feeling in alignment right now. This is not really me. Okay, what" like and then getting curious, "Okay, what's going on here? What am I really upset about?
Mm-hmm.
What's really triggering me right now?" And just asking those questions of ourselves to, like, get to know this version of ourself, like post loss, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yes.
Um, or, having those tough conversations with ourselves that unless we're kind of getting help for it, no one else is going to ask us those questions. Like that motivation has to come from with us, right? No one can
Yes.
force us to go to therapy. No one can force us to, have those thoughts. Like
Hmm.
it's a really eye-opening journey
It
of
is.
self-discovery, and many, many other things that we, didn't choose to go on,
Hmm.
but here we are, and
Yeah.
we can choose to go on it, if that makes sense, right? We didn't choose our
Yes.
losses per
Absolutely.
se, although, if you wanna get into, like, soul contracts and things like that. I was listening
Yeah.
to a podcast about that, and it's like, "No, your soul chooses this," and I was like, I have questions, but
Yeah.
okay, I'm open to that mentality, but why I would have chosen both my parents, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay. Uh, like, I take issue with that part of it, but I'm here for the life lessons, sure, let's embrace
Yes.
those.
Yeah.
But not that everything kinda has to be a lesson, so to speak, but I anyway, I appreciate your openness about all of
Yeah.
that for sure, and how that has shown up for you.
Hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about I love that you're just so much about resilience and all of that. The reason I wanna dig into this a little bit is because I definitely have heard some grievers here and there on social media and just around that sometimes struggle with the word resilience. It's
Hmm.
almost like gratitude, like there are just some words that
Hmm.
seem a little buzzwordy that at least nowadays they've
Yeah.
become kind of that way.
Yeah.
That sometimes I've also noticed depending on where people are in their grieving experience too,
Absolutely.
I think it's a little bit on
Yes.
the earlier side that people tend to take issue with words
Hmm.
like that. They struggle with that
Yeah.
because I think they think that like they have to be resilient, that resilience is like the goal, that's the pinnacle of like, okay, I have to go through all of this. So it has to be, I have to build strength, I have to build resilience, whatever. And that I feel like people just have sort of a negative relationship with that word or the concept of it.
Hmm.
So I'm curious from your perspective, like, what does resilience mean to you? Either how you define it or just your perspective on it. I'm so curious.
Yeah. So back to where I was stuffing my feelings and
Mhm.
suppressing my feelings. I feel like I want to try to redefine resilience
I love that.
because I think the perception is you have to just push through, you have to be strong, and in reality, it's really being softer with yourself in the moments that you need to be soft. Because I think back to what I thought resilience was all the, well, the 8, 20, I don't know however many years I was just
Time.
suppressing. Yeah, suppressing and just being like, I have to be strong. I have to be the
Yeah.
strong one. And, I don't think that I think resilience shows up whenever you just keep going and you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You don't have to be harsh on with yourself. You don't have to be hard on yourself. You just
Yeah.
keep putting one foot in front of the other and resilience shows up for you. And I think people they think that it's just a mentality, like, they just say
Yeah.
stay strong. And to me, that's not what resilience is. So I think it's something that just happens whenever you just keep pushing forward, one foot in front of the other in the softest way possible, not being hard on yourself, not being harsh, and just feeling all the feels and just doing what you have to do to get through each day.
Yeah.
So,
I love what you just said there. Resilience shows up for you.
hmm.
No one has ever said that quite like you just did. And I love that. It reminds me of like the old Gaelic or Irish or whatever adage, like the road rises up to meet you, right? Or may
Yeah,
the road rise up to meet you. It
yes.
kind of that just went through my mind for some reason because it's just like but the one foot in front of the other thing, that resonates with me so much. I
Hmm.
say all the time, kind of in my own way to my community, it's just like it's the those micro moments. It's the
Hmm.
little moments. It's the those mornings that we show up and we struggle. Oh, do we struggle to get out of bed? Or we had a
Yes.
horrible night's sleep because we had a million things going on in our head, or we were
Hmm.
just so sad, or we were crying all night, or
Hmm.
wherever we are in our grieving experience, right?
Yeah.
And and then we have to wake up and do it over and over and over again every single day. And it's exhausting and it's painful and it's a reality we did not ask for or want
Hmm.
to be in, but it is ours and there is an ownership of that I feel like we can take. And I think that's where resilience comes in for me too. And that's, I like resiliency and then like empowerment kind of go hand in hand for me a little bit too,
Mhm.
because there is such an empowerment in that inner strength that we as grievers can tap into, that we
Mhm.
do maybe inevitably tap into, whether we kind of want to or not.
Yeah.
We might surprise ourselves. And it's a beautiful experience when it starts
Mhm.
to happen, but it's not always this like big aha moment, right? Like we can have little aha moments, like you said. And I
Yeah.
love that you kind of had that moment of recognition with yourself, like how you come to
Mhm.
Jesus moment of like,
Yes.
this is not me. Maybe the thought even with your, I don't want to
Mhm.
project, but like,
Yeah.
this isn't who I want to be.
Yeah,
Like this,
exactly.
no, 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 this doesn't, I don't want this life. When I was talking to someone recently, they were like, the burden that they were carrying, and there was like some anger that they were carrying with a loved one, or it was too great and it
Mhm.
was too heavy, and they were like, It's time to release this."
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of that, and resiliency can just mean so many things. I just love how you said that, because it's not, and I consider that with like gratitude and these other kind of buzzwordy
Yeah.
things. It's like, and strength and everything,
Yeah.
it's, yes, these words can be seen as very black and white, but
Mhm.
it's so much of it is how we choose to define it.
Yeah.
And there's a choice in that, and we can embody that. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, resilience can mean something for everyone.
Yeah.
And even with like my name, losses become gains, because like I've had a couple people be like, I take issue with that name,
Yeah.
because because like people, I actually got an email from someone who like hosts some like grief group. I think they had like
Mhm.
referred me or something.
Yeah.
And they were like, they were like, I'm not coming at a place of judgment. Like actually, there was someone in the group that was offended by your name, and I was just curious where you came up with it.
Huh.
And I won't go into that whole story, but
Yeah.
it's I have a similar mentality to you, where it's like, it's not just trying to find resiliency from whatever we've gone through and that's
Mhm.
it, and call it a day. Like, it's not that black and white. It's
Yeah.
a process. It's a sacred process.
Yeah.
It's our own to navigate, and it's honoring what we've been through fiercely,
Mhm.
and honoring that in whatever way we need to, but also knowing with time, when we're ready to kind of recognize this,
Yes.
that there is this inner strength and wisdom and new perspectives that can come through when we start to kind of crack the door open and allow
Yes.
those things to come in.
Yes.
And resilience, I think, is a huge part of that. And
Mhm.
and it can feel very empowering with the right tools and the right
Yes.
community and resources and all of the
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
So just to kind of start slowly wrapping this up, you mentioned journaling and you mentioned a couple other things that have
Mhm.
helped you. If somebody is here listening and is no doubt inspired by your story, as I
Oh,
am,
thank you.
and wants to flex their resiliency muscle a little bit, or just start to just feel like they could be resilient at
Mhm.
some point
Mhm.
if they're not
Yeah.
right now, or they're just kinda, they're just feeling stuck.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person, or what, tip or piece of guidance would you give to that individual listening today?
I think I would just say that to give yourself grace and to know that healing takes time.
Yeah.
I loved how you said earlier that, depending on where you are in your story, your walk with grief, some things just hit you harder. Because I mean, I think back
Okay.
to when my mom was very raw in her grief. There were certain things that I say today that I have experienced today, and I maybe share with on my podcast, and she would take issue with that because she wasn't ready to hear that. And so
Yeah.
I know some of those pain points. So
Yeah. So fair.
I always try to, whenever I'm speaking on my podcast and I'm saying something that I know will be very hard for somebody that's very raw in their grief
A
to
little
hear.
controversial. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I try to say,
Same.
this probably isn't going to land for you right now,
Yep.
but
Exactly.
keep showing up, keep
Yeah.
coming back, because
Mhm.
eventually something will hit you and it'll give you that spark of hope that you need for that day. Or
Yeah.
maybe you can go back and listen to the exact thing that I just gave you the disclaimer for, and it will land for
Yes.
you differently. But I think just keep showing up and being open to hope. And one thing that I think I'm an introvert, so I like to withdraw. So I think try to find a community
Yeah.
and reach out to your friends and say yes to those invitations to get you out of the house. Do all those things that will help you build a community, because we definitely get through our grief better and easier, or we don't get through it, but we walk
Hmm.
through it. That's kind of hard to say, but you walk through your grief better whenever you have people with you walking alongside you. So yeah, so just be open. Just be
Yeah.
open, one foot in front of the other.
You are taking the words right out of my mouth today. You may as well be hosting this podcast at this point, because I literally feel like I say that every other episode, more or
Oh,
less. It's like I always
yes.
say, like, just keep this in the back of your mind for later, or
Mm-hmm.
take what resonates, leave the rest. Like,
Yes.
and I thank you so much for saying all of that, and I will just kind of final say, like, and maybe you can empathize with this as well, but like, the things that resonate and hit for me now are not the things that resonated and hit with me back then.
No.
And you become very aware of that. You're just, oh, no, 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 not ready for that
Mm-hmm.
yet. Or
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you two, us two talking right now,
Yes.
are crazy. You don't even know
Yes.
what resilience is. Like,
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
can maybe hear some people screaming at us right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
That's okay. You're allowed to scream.
Yes. That's
Um,
right.
I I was that person too once
Mm-hmm.
upon a time. I
Me
think I
too.
think many of us grievers were.
Yes.
We weren't ready to hear it. We didn't want to hear. There's no way resiliency was ever going to even be in our vocabulary.
Mm-mm.
It just wasn't going to
Mm-mm.
happen. We're too sad, too in shock, too in anguish, too in all of
Mm-hmm.
the things.
Yeah.
But I love what you just said about being open, because I would say the exact same thing. In that, we have to like, I keep using the word test today. I don't know why, but like, we have to kind of put ourselves a little bit in situations where it's like, "Ooh, this stings to hear.
Yeah.
Don't quite believe it." But I swear the power of the mind is incredible. And then
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you hear those things enough times, you will like start believing it in a
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts to hit. It starts to resonate. You start to be like, okay, maybe there's a little stock in this that I can start
Yeah.
to believe in.
Yeah.
And it's really powerful. And I don't think we understand that sometimes, or
Mm-hmm.
recognize that when we're
Mm-hmm.
so blinded by grief, which is so fair. I mean,
Yeah.
for sure. But, eventually the very foggy grief goggles, can kind of start to unfog a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and we
Mm-hmm.
can come out of it slowly but surely. The grief's always going to be there. It's always going to be
Mm-hmm.
a little foggy,
It
but
is.
you see the light, so to speak, through the fog of those goggles.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think start to maybe not make sense in terms of like how they died or why they died or anything like that, but just life kind of opens up for you a little bit, and I think that's where the resiliency can kind of start to creep in
I
a little
agree.
bit.
I
But
agree.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
100%.
Jessica, this is such a pleasure. Oh my gosh. We are so on the same wavelength. I am
Yeah,
so
I
here
love
for
it.
this.
I
So
think
great.
about, I was just so excited to come on to your podcast because it is rooted in grief. I mean, that's what you're all about. And
Mhm.
I just think that's so important. And you're doing such great work for people
Thank you.
that are going through a really hard time. And I think it's something you're very brave and bold in stepping out and talking about that and bringing stories to others to give them hope and offer them a
Yeah.
little bit of encouragement that better days are ahead, even when you don't
Yeah.
believe it. So,
Definitely. And I can shout that from the rooftops, but that's
mm-hmm.
why having guests like you come on and share their story, like that's why I'm so honored to have guests come on and share, because it's like, okay, people can listen to me all day long, but like I want them to know that it's not just my story of that.
Yeah.
There's more out there, and here's how people did it, and
Mm-hmm.
here are the little tangible or maybe even not tangible things that helped you through it.
Sure.
So yeah, I love amplifying stories like this, and
Yeah.
I think if just any bit of any one person's story resonates in some way, or they can see themselves a little bit in us,
Yeah.
like you said, just give that little bit of hope. And you've suffered three of the most major losses that a little
Mm-hmm.
family unit can go through. I mean, you have
Yeah.
each of these three, and then you're mourning your family unit, and it's so complicated, and it goes so deep. And I mean, it's literally why I named the podcast Life with Grief, because it's like, yeah, there's the grief, but then
Yes.
there's like all this life that we have to
Yeah.
live
Yep.
after it. And how do we do that? And man, it's a road.
It is. It is a road.
Bumpy and
You are
shockingly and,
right.
oh my gosh,
Long. Yes.
full of gravel. And
Yes.
yeah.
I
But it can be
agree.
really pretty too. It can
Yes.
be, there's some scenic routes there
There
occasionally.
is.
So
There is.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Jessica, thank you so much for everything today. How can people follow you, get in touch with you, work with you,
yeah.
everything that you offer? Where can people find you?
Okay. Well, I want to point everybody to my resiliency type quiz. So, I developed this quiz, and I think that in order to get through the hard times, we have to understand ourselves, and I feel like that's the best tool
So
that
true.
you can have whenever you're creeping up on harder times.
Yeah.
So, the 5 types are the maverick, the futurist, the enthusiast, the thriver, and the articulator. And so I feel like you can kind of tell what each one embodies, but
I want to take this quiz immediately after we get off.
yes,
I'm curious which
yes.
one you think I am. I'll offline with you about that one. I'm
I think
curious
you
if
might
you
be
have a guess.
articulated. I think
You think
articulator.
so?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm gonna take it and I'll let you know.
Yes, but so I want to point everybody there. So it's
Okay.
jessicaboarman.com/quiz. And you can follow me on Instagram. Jessica.Boarman is my Instagram handle. And you can find me at jessicaboarman.com and my Resilient with Jessica Boarman podcast. But yeah, so I love connecting with people and helping them through whatever they're going through. That's my biggest thing, is just letting people know that they don't walk through life alone. So
Yeah, you clearly have a long history of being that person for people, and that's not an easy role to take on, and it
yeah.
really is so heart-centered and so service-centered. So, yeah, you're very special. It takes a special person to do that.
Oh,
So
well,
truly,
thank you.
like, kudos to you. This is ingrained in what you do,
Oh,
clearly. So
yeah. Well, thanks,
that's
Tara.
amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jessica. This
Yeah.
is amazing.
Thanks for having me on.
I am sending you a huge thank you for tuning into today's episode, my friend. Visit lossesbecomegains.com for my blog, more coping tools, ways to work with me, and so much more. And be sure you're following along on Instagram and Facebook at Losses Become Gains, and on Instagram and TikTok at Life with Grief Podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and share this episode or this podcast with someone who could use it too. And remember to always keep asking yourself, how will I turn my losses into gains today? I'll catch you in the next episode.